Hello.
Hello and good day. Please let me know if you can hear me.
I can.
Good, good. So thank you for joining. And today we are going to be doing our report of BiWeekly live because there is a lot of information that is worth to be shown. And I would like to start from. So this is recorded for everyone who would wish to see this afterwards. It's going to last for 90 minutes, 90. And we will talk today about the World Durability Rule Ukraine, about the situation in the fields, yield-wise, export-wise, and of course mentioning what is happening on the battlefields. Meanwhile, I would like to show you, let me just fix the blurring because this is not, I would like to show you the bulletproof vest from the soldier from Bakhmut. And also there is this, I don't know how to call it, but it is from the mine, from the anti-tank missile, Fendi. And guess where I am? I am at the farm, my good friend and client near Kiev. So as you can see, the farmers in Ukraine, they are true soldiers, not only in agricultural fields, but also in the battlefields. They are helping the army as much as they can. They're sending their employees to the battlefields. They are supporting with money, with equipment. I mean, by equipment, the tractors, the trucks, and of course, with food that they produce. Currently, I'm at the farm near Kiev, who produce vegetables, and in the crop rotation, wheat as well. But let me go to the presentation and to start our talk from, first of all, reminding who we are and why are you seeing this this BiWeekly. So World Durability Rule Ukraine, this is the initiative that started with the team of Travelite Agro. This is the Ukrainian company. I'm CEO of this company, and we are organizing all sorts of educational events and tours and field days for the farmers throughout the world, trying to bring the technology to Ukraine. And since the beginning of the war, all our projects dropped because there was no possibility to make them happen. There were other priorities, and we also reorganized for the initiative that is meant to help rebuild the houses and the small farms of the people who suffered from the Russian aggression. Because when Russian tanks and Russian troops were coming to Ukraine, trying to reach Kiev and other major cities, they were coming through the villages. When they had the battle, when they entered the battle, Ukrainians fought back. They got angry and destroyed everything they could in the villages of the civilian people. Therefore, we are trying to help those who cannot get any help from governmental institutions, who cannot get ag loans, who do not have other equity to sell it and to fix their homes, their farms, and their small agricultural production. So we have 4 focuses of our aid that has been active for year and 4 months already. So first of all, we are trying to fix or rebuild the homes of the people so that they have a roof over their head. Secondly, they are the small farmers, so they have some production capacities like the barns, greenhouses, storage facilities for commodities, and so on. So that would be our second helping hand to those people. Also, of course, the equipment. It is also very important because farmers cannot farm without equipment these days and stay productive and profitable. Therefore, we are trying to repurchase the equipment they lost because of Russian aggression, and farm animals as well. Because Russians, when they came to Ukraine, they were hoping to go to the restaurants in Kiev, but instead they had no supply of food and they were just stealing the chicken, slaughtering the pigs and cows to get some food when they were in Ukraine. And this is still happening. In order to be as transparent as possible and free of any even thought about corruption, we have invited the respectful people to be our ambassadors, and the most important, to control how the money is spent. In other words, before any dollar is spent, we agree it with the board of ambassadors, and anyone can join to this board if he or she has done something substantial for the program, either money-wise or helping to connect with the groups of people who can help. Two important principles: we never give off cash to those people. Instead, we provide them with services of rebuilding or repurchasing, and we do not upgrade. If the farmer is used to using a tractor of 80 horsepower or 150, he will not get a 350 horsepower tractor by John Deere, which is 5 times more expensive. He knows how to utilize an 80 horsepower tractor. That is why we will look for the same tractor for him. How to help? LifeNets, this is our partnered NGO in the United States of America who have 100 scores out of the 100. All from the North American continent and some other countries, if they wish, they can send it to LifeNets. Also on our website, you can go to donate menu option, and you will see the options of donating directly to our foundation in Ukraine. So any choice is a good choice, and we try to pay back to everyone. Therefore, all our information on agricultural technologies would be available to you for $200 donation to this program. And that is a very serious library of the latest information on production of 5 crops: corn, soybean, wheat, sunflower, and canola. Or you can join our trips, farm tours to New Zealand, to the United States, to Europe, that are posted on our website, and you will get the discount equal to the donation to World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine. Also, we are very much willing to be able to speak to as many people as possible about what is really happening in Ukraine, who are those people who need help, how is the war affecting the village people, how the war is affecting the economy and the production of agricultural commodities. We have facts, we have the information firsthand, and we would like to share it. So if you can help us reach the media or groups of people who would be compassionate and who would understand the situation of the farmers in Ukraine, we would love to present for as long as they are willing to listen. We want to break the propaganda that is coming from Russian Federation by providing the true first-hand information. This is our team in Ukraine, and I'm grateful to all of them that I'm able to be addressing you today, and we are able to help those in need who in the future will have the easier period of recovery after the war. By saying easier, I mean it will take less years for them to return to what they had before the war. As of right now, we have collected 54,000. That was at the beginning of summer, and right now another $7,000 has been added to this amount, and that's the total that we collected for donations since the April 2022. So the last project that we are just finishing, it added another 7,000 to this amount, and 6,500 are still on the account waiting for the next aid recipient, who of course will be approved by the ambassadors. Now the news. So first of all, the battlefield news. You know that the counteroffensive of Ukraine is in action, and everybody are looking very thoroughly to the news coming from Ukraine. Some journalists and some news reviews are saying that we are too slow, or they've expected more in terms of recapturing Ukrainian land. But from what I'm hearing from the battlefields, from my friends who are visiting the soldiers often, this is not an easy task. And the difference between Ukraine and Russia is that Ukrainian generals and commanders, they are trying to take care most of all about their soldiers. That's why they do not take additional risk and they'd rather wait than go and use all the forces to for the small victories. So Bakhmut has become the stronghold that Russians were trying to capture all year 2022. They have succeeded to capture Bakhmut by 98%. As a result, when the counteroffensive started, we are quite successful in surrounding them on both areas. And at the moment, we are almost present on all the highlands around the city to be able to control the supply at the back. Once we occupy all the highlands 100%, then Bakhmut will be closed in the circle. There is also such a notion as the Bakhmut scenario. When Russians were trying to fight to capture this city, there were a lot of houses in this city. The city was fresh and was not that much damaged. So Ukrainian army had a possibility to hide there while fighting back the Russians. When Ukrainians retreated in the end of last year and this winter, the city was almost 99% destroyed. So there is no shelter, there is no way anyone can hide there. Therefore, Russians right now are stuck in the almost open field and they have no place to hide. So it is easier for Ukrainians to recapture, unfortunately, of the totally damaged down city. Odessa. As you know, after the grain initiative was stopped by Russia, they started to bomb Ukrainian port facilities. Odessa is the biggest port on Black Sea and the biggest port in Ukraine that was used in this grain corridor. One of the 3 ports that was used in grain corridor. In Odessa, there are also the Danube River ports located closer to Moldova and Romania. So one of the attacks that Russia has done a number of attacks about which I will talk later. Right after this agreement was ended by Russian Federation, they started to shell and to destroy Ukrainian infrastructure. That is a question to people who make decisions, but as it turned out, majority of the anti-missile systems were located in the areas so that they would protect, first of all, the capital and the military forces. But no one was taking care of the ports and of the infrastructure. It has been a while since Russia shelled with hundreds of missiles, not caring where they will target and where they will hit. They just wanted to destroy as much as possible of Ukrainian cities. Therefore, probably we just got relaxed and we were used that majority of all the air weapons have been intercepted on its approach to Kiev. Like 90%, 85% of all of them were destroyed, had been destroyed. But the situation with Odessa, which is very close to Crimean Navy, that Russian Navy is currently located in Crimea. There is not enough time to intercept the even the regular drones, kamikaze drones that are supplied to Russia by Iran, and soon they will be produced in Russia as well, but also from Iranian parts. And the ballistics, that's even worse, because the rockets that they are using, the ballistic rockets, they have about 600 meters in radius of inaccuracy. So they are often hitting the wrong objects, but also damaging the objects that they targeted to. This is one of the results. They have destroyed the UNESCO protected cathedral that belonged to Russian church, Russian Orthodox Church. And it is also a fact in Ukraine that Russian Orthodox Church had hosted a lot of Russian criminal or war agents in Ukraine before the war, because there were a lot of official investigations to a number of priests, a number of the churches who had Russian people, not priests or not students of the church, but just people with Russian passports were not able to explain why they are hiding there. There were a lot of literature about Russia being our, so to say, motherland and so on, and in connecting with Russia and this disgracing Ukraine as the independent state. Therefore, the church that belonged to Russian, the cathedral that belonged to Russian Orthodox Church has been destroyed by Russian military, who, by the way, got baptized for the victory by Russian church priests. This is kind of like a circle. And for you to understand, the chief pastor of Russian church in Ukraine, after it happened, he said a very ambiguous phrase: those who launch rockets into the sky get the rockets from the sky, kind of hinting that Ukraine shelled its own civilians and its own churches. You can make judgments yourself. Now about the battlefield updates. You know that Ukrainian military, they have been keeping track of the losses of Russian army since the beginning of the war. And for you to understand, every morning, every Ukrainian wakes up and checks the number of Russians dead over the last day, over the last 24 hours. First of all, it's because we understand that there is less soldiers trying to kill us. And of course, we all understand that there is a hidden number of Ukrainian losses behind that. So we understand that this is the number that in some way correlates, and hope that it is much less, but still to the losses on the Ukrainian side. And of course, the losses of their equipment. This is always a pleasant view to see as many artillery systems or tanks as possible destroyed over the last day. July 21, this is the middle of harvest in Ukraine, the harvest of winter crops, which is winter wheat, winter canola, and winter barley in some places. Usually it starts from Odessa, from southern oblast, but right now these oblasts are very limited in production. Therefore, we would, in normal years, have higher numbers of those commodities harvested. But here's what we are observing right now. So it has already been harvested over 5 million tons of grains and legumes this year. That is 5% less than it was predicted last year, because unfortunately the season this year is more difficult. There was too much moisture in the spring, and of course the possibilities for the farmers to feed the crops and to protect the crops, it was limited. Therefore, you can see the numbers of the crops. And by the way, winter peas is also peas are also grown in the southern part of Ukraine. So the grain terror. We all by now understand that Russia is targeting not only the Ukrainian military, but also the Ukrainian biggest industry, that after they destroyed the metal industry, is the biggest export industry in Ukraine, agriculture. We are the country that can feed up to 600 million people with our grains. This is very important for the developing countries, and we have had a very strong infrastructure to be able to do it quickly. Our prices hardly were different, much more different than the prices for the commodities in the world. But now that we are isolated, this gap is growing. So what is going on? After the break of grain agreement, or grain corridor as we call it in Ukraine, the next couple of days and until now, Russia is using all their forces to available forces to destroy Ukrainian infrastructure. This is done deliberately so that Ukraine does not have this safeguard for the negotiations, and nobody would even try to help Ukraine, understanding that Ukraine is not able to ship. This is what they think. Of course, the business is trying to adjust, and we have developed strong alternative routes since the war started. However, July 18-19, Russians have launched a number of rockets to Odessa Oblast, as a result destroying 6,000 tons of grain in the terminals, 100 tons of peas and 20 tons of barley. It was in one 24-hour period. July 23rd, the grain storage was damaged, 120 tons of grain. 27, even a person died, a port service person, and production equipment on the cargo terminals was destroyed. We do not know exactly which of the ports to what extent have been damaged, but as of today, from what I've heard firsthand, there were attacks to Odessa main port, to Ilychovsk, or southern port, as it is called right now, southern port, and to the port in Reni, the port on Danube River, because this is a number one alternative for Ukraine to ship, is to load the ships on Reni ports and send it to north to Baltic Sea. So 26 port infrastructure facilities were damaged only within 9 days, and even 5 ships as well. 22 people wounded only within 4 days, and there is not much information about what was the total amount of people who suffered wounds until now, starting from July 18th. These are the missiles and the weapons that Russia is using to target all these facilities. On the 21st of July, my good friend and our client, who's traveled with me to Europe and to United States of America, is a relatively smaller farmer, private farmer. All his family works this farm. He is from Odessa Oblast. less than 2,000 hectares, but he had quite a good infrastructure. The reason is that Ukrainian farmers understand that storage facilities are very important to get good prices, to wait until good prices. So he has been reinvesting majority of his profit into the infrastructure, into legs, into augers, and all the transportation system to these storage facilities. At 3:20 a.m., 2 Russian Onyx ballistic rockets landed over his storage facility. He is not the terminal owner. He is not the port. He is just a smaller size farmer with some of his own storage facilities. Nevertheless, in 40 minutes after the first 2 rockets, when all the services, the firefighters, ambulance, and others were in place trying to tackle the fire and help the people, another 2 rockets came, destroying, and you can see even damaging these vehicles who came to help people. This is Russian terrorist faith. They terrorize the civilians, they terrorize the non-military people, they kill the children, they destroy the hospitals and any helping hand. They do not care about people, neither of Ukraine nor of people of Africa who are waiting for the grain, nor of their own people. July 24th, the port of Reni was attacked. This is the port on Dunai River, and 15 Shahed drones, as I mentioned, those are the Iranian drones, although Iran denies that they are selling it to Russia, but there has been enough of proofs to understand that this is their drones. And the main proof is that when those drones were destroyed, the wrecks of it had the numbers and the printed names by in Arabic language, in Iranian. Therefore, it's definitely not Russian. Yes, they had some stickers to name it Russian way as well, but below those stickers, there were Iranian marks. So 30 ships stopped in Ismail after the attacks. For you to understand, before the war, the Danube corridor was a very small way of exporting grain, and having powerful ports on Black Sea, we rarely used this, as well as railroad transportation. When majority of the ports last year stopped exporting before the grain corridor started a year ago, we started to invest and to develop the Danube shoulder, as we call it, the Danube route. And from 0.7 million metric tons of possible logistics of grain through Danube, we we increased it to 2.2 million tons. In some cases, they said it was possible to do 1 million before the war, but still it is much more than a double of the capacity that we reached in Danube. The history is repeating. In the years 1929, 1939, 48, and 53, there has been a lot of attempts of Russia trying to kill Ukrainian agricultural production. And I can talk long about that, but there were, in 1953, there were laws that forced Ukrainian people, village people, to pay taxes on each of the trees that they have in their garden. And if you do not pay taxes, then you will be very badly punished. People had to work for free in the collective farms a certain amount of hours, and if you do not cover, do not work all those hours, you will be seriously punished and you can lose everything and go to jail. The same for these trees. So as a result, a lot of very tasty and thoroughly pre-selected varieties of fruit and berries were distinct just for the reason that people needed to cut them down because they couldn't afford having this tree. Apples, pears, plums, apricots, cherries. Ukraine has always been rich for agricultural production. And of course, we had a lot of varieties of various crops. So Russia has been doing this genocide of Ukrainian people, because this is one of the ways to genocide the people, not only kill the people with the bullet, but also to kill the spirit of the people and to kill them by shutting down the access to food. So the consequences of the stopping of grain tariff corridor. It is hard to predict. There are a lot of various scenarios that specialists are talking about. However, what we understand now is that if we use the Danube River instead of the Odessa port, it will bring another $50 to $60 dollars additional prices on logistics per metric ton. For the crops like corn, it would be very substantial because it would make up to 1/4, like 25%, in addition of what is already being paid for the transportation. This is the losses of up to $60 million due to inability to export and to sell for the reasonable price of all the commodities that are produced in Ukraine. The prices, there are some, that is quite the most extreme prediction, but some experts say that because of Ukraine being unable to export the commodities, the prices of corn and wheat might go up to 40% on the world market. Russia is using this situation and they say, we will, instead of Ukraine, ship 50,000 up to 50,000 for free. But shipping first 50,000 for free and selling all the other commodities that they grow 40% higher is a good business, bloody business, terroristic or Russistic business. However, this is how they think. They want to isolate us and they want to take over the Ukrainian markets by their commodities. Second year at a row, they claim to have the record yields. How do you think? Why so? Because they are stealing the commodities from Ukrainian territories, the occupied territories, and they have not been able to sell everything they have stolen last year. They want to continue doing this year. This is a primitive way of thinking and way of running the war with no dignity, Russian style, in other words. The sunflower or the oil commodities prices can go up to 25%. That's one of the reasons is because we have the processing in Ukraine and we can sell not the raw commodity, but we can sell the processed commodity, which also is requiring ports to be shipped to Europe. For example, sunflower oil has been mostly shipped via ports. It's now that we are, maybe it has already started, but last year we have been considering building a pipe to pump sunflower oil from Volyn Oblast, which is the northwest of Ukraine, to Poland. Just compare, Russia is building a pipeline to pump crude oil to EU, which they purely take from the ground. Ukraine is building the pipe to sell the sunflower oil, which is the product of processing of agricultural commodities that we have succeeded growing. So Black Sea Grain Initiative, some fact about it. About 33 million tons have been exported through this corridor over the year. Before the war, 1 month export capacity of all the Ukrainian routes, including the sea and the Danube River, the river, and the railroads and the trucks, was up to 7 million metric tons per month. Within the year, with all those capacities, just limited ports to the 3 within the grain initiative, only 33 million tons that was exported through the ports. All the rest was exported through the rivers or the ground transportation. July 16 was the last ship that departed Odessa with 15,000 tons of rapeseed and 23 tons of corn to Netherlands. The next day, Russia refused to extend the agreement and started shelling our ports in another few days. But they claimed that all the ships that would come into Ukrainian ports would be considered as the ones bringing the weapons. As a result, Russia is breaking the numerous times, and now again, they're breaking the law, because the international waters of Black Sea cannot be controlled or restricted by anyone, and they are not allowing any ships to come to Ukraine. They want to inspect all the ships coming to Black Sea, and that would be the ships coming to Georgia, to Russia, to Moldova, and to Romania, because at the moment Ukraine is not able to load any ship because of these damages. So what the numbers of what was exported and where? 50% of grain was exported under grain initiative. So it means that this 33 million metric tons, that was half of the total exports within August 22, July 23. The total export was 66.8 million tons. You see 33, 32, other means and grain initiative. This is a very substantial corridor that we lost because of the Russian attack. For you to understand that the river, Danube River, that had a potential of 2.2 million metric tons exportation within the month, is included not into the grain initiative, it's in all the other means. It means that Russia have shut down 50%, and they have seriously shut down like maybe another 25% of our capacity. How do you think it will affect the prices and the agricultural industry in Ukraine? In the meantime, China has been the biggest importer of the commodities from Ukraine. Nevertheless, you can see 8 million tons they were purchasing. Turkey tried to be a peace coordinator, and they have been purchasing at a big discount our commodities and sending them throughout the world, including their country as well. So they made business. Europe would be Spain, and European countries would be the next largest. Half of all the commodities were corn, and it's understandable because corn is the cheapest commodity, and it needs the cheapest ways of transportation with the biggest possible amount. So 51.4%, those were the corn cargo, corn ships loaded with corn coming out of 3 Ukrainian ports. So, of course, everybody understands that, and this is just one of the conclusions of ISW. This is what Russia is trying to use, the leverage. This closure of the grain initiative is the leverage that Russia is trying to use to influence the West, to get the possibility to access to SWIFT, some of their banks, to have the possibility to sell ammonium through the pipeline to Yati, Odessa, and also to get a possibility to sell and to buy the fertilizers and agricultural parts for agricultural equipment. Before that, they said that they are quite independent and they do not need that. But now they're taking these serious actions to return these possibilities for themselves. So again, Russians are liars. What they will do with the ships that are in the area, they would not dare to shoot any of the vessels in the Black Sea that belongs not to Ukraine, but to some NATO country. Therefore, this is another reason they started to shell the ports. Not the ships, but the ports. Cost of logistics. The first alternative to the Black Sea ports is Ismail and Reni. And this is the Danube River. I mentioned that we have increased the possibility to export up to 2.2 million metric tons within a month through the ports in Danube. However, there is a very inconvenient logistic chain to these ports. First of all, they have about 90% of feeding the port by trucks and only 10 by railways. And the total race on the logistics through the ground, on the reloading and on transportation with smaller vessels is about at least 50, maybe in general, that would be the in general $50 per metric ton more than it was through Odessa ports. This is the estimation of the IMF of the increase in world grain prices because of our situation in Ukraine, but 15% more would not mean much for Europe and United States. It would mean a lot to Africa, and it would mean much more to Ukrainian producers, because 15% influence on the world market, this is the huge gap in the price within Ukraine. Now let's see what is already happening with the prices in Ukraine, and this is at the border. So the world price of corn as of today per metric ton is 268. In Ukraine, it is a little bit less than 200. Wheat, 282. We are even lower in wheat, 186. Probably because it is the harvest time and Ukraine has a lot of wheat, like 9 million. Usually we had 9 million of hectares under wheat production. 175 barley price abroad, 153 in Ukraine dollars per metric ton. Canola or rapeseed, 435 and 373. It's almost $200 difference on 1 metric ton. This is the situation already seen in Ukraine, and the logistics, it needs to be delivered to these ports to be able to be sold for these prices. Now let's talk about the Ukrainian small farmers who need help, who we are trying to help. So there is a family of Natalia Melnichenko. She is from the Odessa Oblast, Velika Alexandrivka village. It was occupied by Russians last year, but now they are trying to rebuild their house. They farm a little bit less than 30 hectares of their own land and 40 hectares of the leased land. They raise animals, and they had a little bit of diversification in business. However, this is what remained from their house and from their belongings after Russians occupied their village starting from March 10 and until the end of the year. Only 4 days before the deoccupation or liberation of the village, Natalia's house was totally burned down. This is the usual thing for Russians. When they retreat, they destroy everything that is left behind them so that nobody would be able to use it. This is the second family, 36-year-old Alexander Donchenko. He is the farmer. Now he is in Kryvyi Rih, but he's also from Velika Alexandrivka. As you know, their village was under occupation until October 10th. So March 10, October 10, 7 months. And he had this shed, this barn for storage of his crops that he produced, cultivated on 100, almost a little less than 100 hectares of farmland. Now, 1/3 of it is still mined and is not accessible. They had pigs, cows. They still have pigs, cows, and they need to feed them. However, the warehouse, although it looks like it is still standing, there was an explosion of the mine inside it, and the roof was taken up, turned down from the connection with the walls, and then it landed back. So it is very dangerous to even be inside. It needs to be reconstructed, and before he starts, he is able to use it again. So he is the second potential aid recipient that is counting or hoping for help of of World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine. The kindergarten in the same village of Velika Alexandrivka. This is the project that we had approval of ambassadors to file for one of the programs in Germany. The program is named, the agency is named Groundbreakers, and currently we are waiting for them to approve 50,000 euros for our project of this kindergarten, rebuilding this kindergarten, because it has a lot of damages to the roof and a lot of damages inside, including the windows. Although this premise was sealed for the period of blockage, but there were a number of mines arriving to the building. This is how it looks from the other side and from inside. And that is the report of our latest project. This project was totally funded by Ukrainian farmers and our partners in Ukraine. So we are proud to report that we built the mine shelter to the orphanage with 60 children, who half of them are less than 1 year old, because they are located in a very, very dangerous zone. Kyiv Oblast is always #1 target for Russian missiles, so they are at a risk of getting the missile into their facility or the wrecks of their facility. So they asked us to help them with the shelter, and along with the farmer at whose farm I'm right now, we started to work, and our initiative, World to Rebuild Rural Ukraine, collected 6,600 of donations from Ukrainian donors. that is all the money were spent for building this shelter. This is what they had at the moment when we arrived. They had these shipping cars, and two of them were surrounded by this thick bricks, and there are concrete, how do you call it, panels on top with sacks of sand in it, and this roof. So you can see it is one of the highest levels of protection from the debris and from the explosions of all types of missiles, unless it is a direct hit. And just to remind you that last year, the first who we have ever helped, that's why he has the letter A, Alexander Kevosheya, he is the farmer who we succeeded to find a tractor, and thanks to us, he had another group of people collecting him $14,000. As a result, with this tractor and with that amount of money, he planted winter crops, which he is harvesting right now. The second aid recipient was Allah. This is what was left from a number of premises of their small family farm, very close to Kyiv. This is the house, that's the premises with the equipment and with the storage of crops. We built her this house for her family. The third aid recipient was Irina Shevchenko. That was the barn with animals inside, and in March last year it was destroyed totally along with animals. That's what we built for her. That's another house. It was just the final stages and this spring that we covered it with this ceiling from the outside, the siding. And the fourth was Yulia Kovalenko. That was when we started to work with Velika Alexandrivka village, and we continue to help people there. We helped them because the husband is disabled. They have she was pregnant when we started to work with her, and she had already one son at this moment. So that is what was left from their shed and their storage. As a result, we built them the new one. We refreshed the walls and reconstructed the warehouse that was in May 20th this year. Just this is what we do, and once again, I would be extremely, as well as all our team, and especially Ukrainian farmers, small family farmers, would be grateful to you if you could help us help these people. We are looking for any possibility to speak to the groups of farmers, those who are compassionate about Ukraine, those who really can make the difference. Just some statistics about Ukraine. About up to 20% of Ukrainian land is farmed by huge corporations. They're okay. They do not need our help. They are helping the others. This is the mid-sized farmers. They are private farmers who farm about half of all the land in Ukraine. They've started this business in late 2000s, and until now they've succeeded to develop it into the successful agricultural business that is using the standards of the West Europe and North America. And there are about 30% of land farmed by the small family farms. They are the least protected stratum of the society. However, they produce a lot. Their production is about 70% of the total of horticultural production in Ukraine, 60% of the dairy produce, 40% of spring small grains, and up to 90% of potatoes. All of it is produced by these small family farms. They're the ones who we try to help to return to what they had before the war, because nobody deserved that war, and there is no reason it it can be justified. But these are people who cannot survive or rebuild themselves without anybody's help. So please keep that in mind when you are communicating with your partners. We would be grateful for new connections, and we would be willing to deliver all the information that we have collected from firsthand from these people, so that as a result of all this cooperation, we would be able to rebuild the house or the production facility to those who suffered the most. That would be it for today. Thank you very much for joining and listening to me. Please share the link that will be published today on our website to your partners so that they know what we do. It is not only about rebuilding, but it is also about informing of what is really going on in Ukrainian village firsthand, without any interest of politicians or of the media. We do not care who will be punished or who will be helped, as long as both of these people deserve either punishment or help. There are no interests other than the straightforward justice for us. So we speak what we see directly to those who are willing to listen. Once again, thank you. If you have any questions, it is the best time to ask questions. Otherwise, I would be finishing the session today. Gregory, so I will be